right. Are we ready to podcast?
Let's do it. Let's podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, today's guest, Phill Zappone. And I got to tell you, I got to share with you how excited I am to podcast with you. So for everybody listening, it was funny how I met you. I'm going to share a quick story, and then I'm going to try to introduce you a little bit. But okay. I was in a meeting, a work meeting with your wife and her team. And I was trying to get information out of them, like, learning about the business and, picking their brain and whatever. And you kind of came in from the background of like, hold on, let me tell you the real story here. And instantly I was like, I like that guy. Because it was cool because I got to witness, first of all, kind of some of your energy, which we're very alike in terms of our energy and things like that. But it was also it was a moment where I could tell how proud you were of your wife and, that side of things. And so it was just fun, like, how those little interactions you get to observe a lot about? Like, you get to tell who someone is.
Sure.
When that happened.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, Phill, stay on the meeting. Let me pick your brain, and all that. And then, obviously, since then, I've gotten to know you pretty well with, several conversations and all that, but not that well. And so I'm super excited to pick your brain. For everybody listening, Phill is I just asked you before, and now I'm going to butcher it, but you're a certified personal trainer.
Correct.
You're a nurse practitioner.
Correct.
You are a father.
Yes.
A husband, a brother, a community leader. We were just talking off camera about, the Western education out here and stuff like that.
That's right.
Some of the things that I've been really intrigued about and drawn to with, your guys' perspectives and business model is kind of how the Alpine medical team has sort of taken this whole holistic approach to, everybody's health and wellness with the personal training and physical fitness side of things. I know there's a mental health component and all of that stuff. So I'm very intrigued to get there. But before we do, I want to hear more about your background and a little bit of your story because, I know just enough to be dangerous that you obviously have ended up here, but I think that there's value in knowing kind of the background of how you ended up where you ended up professionally and where your passions align and things like that. So do you mind, specifically to the personal training and kind of physical fitness side of things, do you mind giving me a little bit of a background on where your passion for physical fitness started and kind of walk me through that journey a little bit?
Yeah, I guess I kind of feel like I've come full circle in that with physical fitness. I've been exercising for a long time. Since I was 13 years old, I have older brothers. They started by bringing me to the gym, to a local, it's really this guy's basement. As I think I mentioned to you before, I was a high school football coach who had retired. He took all the old equipment when the high school gym got redone. And he left his basement open for all the kids. It was a dirt floor. This is probably like maybe even late 80s, maybe early 90s. I can't, probably late 90s or early 90s rather. And pretty rough setting, dirt floor, cobwebs everywhere. 80s heavy metal music would play. And I probably went just to, my mom made me go to get out of the house. Or maybe I was like, hey, I want to go with my brothers kind of thing. And it just clicked with me right away. I started walking there. I'd walk there in snowstorms. I'd go there all the time. I was from the get-go, something resonated with me. And I think I was just a little guy and I wanted to be big and strong just from growing up watching, like, say, wrestling, or had a lot of, throughout high school, I had friends that were just giants. They were like, some of them were pushing 300 pounds and I wanted to be a big guy. And I was a little guy. I had a growth spurt late. And so I think that desire to keep up was just, got me first interested in fitness. That's how I got started.
Yeah. And then walk me through the kind of the progression of it. Cause obviously you mentioned kind of early 90s or, whenever it was timeline wise, but, clearly you stuck with it.
Yeah.
And obviously it's evolved into a professional endeavor. Walk me through kind of that journey from, a 13-year-old kid in the dirt floor gym, just trying to be big, to now, obviously I've got this, well-educated professional personal trainer in front of me. And I know that, so many things have happened in between there, but I'm interested to hear kind of how things progressed and any insight of why you were able to stick with things like this.
Yeah. I think I had chipped my shoulder, and I probably if I didn't take on exercise, I probably could have taken on something that was unhealthy as an outlet for some big emotions. And I don't think was able to articulate these then, but I just knew I was angry as a young guy. Maybe not as a 13-year-old, but as a teenager and young adult. And it just, you know what I say to my patients, my clients now, I call them clients. I think it's self-affirming. I don't care if you're lifting 3 pounds or 300 pounds. It started to teach me to say I can when I otherwise felt like I heard no a lot, or I felt like I couldn't. It was a physical practice of believing in yourself, step by step. Just like running was probably a physical practice saying I can, just like that train going up, that low train, whatever it's called.
Right. I think I can.
I think I can. Yeah. And after a while, I can. And it's just self-affirming. And so you just I just ate it up.
So was that, because one of the things I've been fascinated with, and some of it came from the conversation with your wife Tabitha, but kind of this, the holistic approach to it all, but this idea that our brains are part of our body, and that we can't work on one without working on the other. And it seems to me like you maybe sense that or experience that from an early age, the mental component of physical exercise. Is that a safe assumption?
I would think so. Yeah, I would almost, sometimes I'd even tell myself stories. I felt like I could tap into another fuel tank. Like if I would imagine that a family member's in trouble, I just felt like I could just change my body. It just felt like this chemical response through me. And it was like, here we go. And like a switch. I felt like I got a switch.
Interesting.
And
that was
being the emotions. I could tap into those emotions.
Right. And that was always intentional, or did that kind of evolve, through the physical fitness journey? And tell me more about that.
I don't. I think I probably gained self-awareness as I aged, as I grew. I was always a sensitive kid, and that might seem like that seemed like a deficit as a young person. I think I consider it my superpower now. To be able to interact with people, to be able to sense what's going on in a room, and to read situations, that kind of sensitivity. But at the time, I think I was. Yeah, I think definitely some of my fitness came from a dark place, and of not feeling good enough, and chasing that. And I was chasing that. And so jumping ahead, to me, I like to tell patients, I like to connect with people. I deal with a lot of clients and fitness clients that maybe are struggling through something, whether it's weight, whether it's an injury, and it brings me a lot of peace to say that I no longer use dark fuel.
Right.
I still feel committed. I still get fired up, but I just don't use dark fuel anymore.
I want to know more about that, because there's sometimes, at least in my personal story, I a lot of times use dark fuel. Whether it's like I have a need for positive affirmations externally, like. I need people to tell me I'm doing a good job.
Sure. I think we all do.
And some of that's like not justified. Like it's definitely not the right pursuit of, endeavors for sure.
I think it's human.
Yeah. And I know that there's a lot of people that sometimes maybe, like, for example, you can use dark fuel as an initial motivator.
Sure.
Like, great thing to get you started, But I think, and I'm curious your take on it, the dark fuel, which I love that terminology, by the way. We should trademark that. Copyright it.
On a t-shirt, yeah.
But if dark fuel stays the motivator long term, obviously that's unhealthy and probably not the most optimal approach.
Sure.
And so I'm just kind of curious your thoughts on that, or your perspective on it. One of the main reasons why is that you've put out quite a bit of messaging, through your social media about the power of a why, and helping your clients find their why and things like that. So I'm kind of curious, where do you draw that line between dark fuel and a more, I don't know if sustainable is the right word, but a more positive why, and kind of what your approach is on that.
I think dark fuel is okay in small doses. If you need to go there, but I think you hit the nail on the head with sustainability, with what your real drivers are. And maybe at this point in my life, I need something deeper, some more something that has roots to it. I need to have it. I need to have the things that I participate in be connected to my purpose. And so
the purpose synonym for why?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we're going at like what has continued to be a driver for me in terms of being committed to exercise over X number of decades. At this stage of my life, I'd use the word purpose. Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
And the opposite of dark fuel. It's like, gosh, you want to think about conceptually, if you have a purpose, you can do just about anything.
I mean, I love to, I was mentioning before we started, I like to flirt with that line between medicine and fitness. And at the core of it, I root for my patients. I want them to thrive. So when I tell them, I want you to make these choices because you're worth it, when maybe I didn't feel like I was worth it. And that just feels right. Feels like that's the way we should be doing things.
Do you feel, and don't let me put words in your mouth, obviously, but I feel like now, you're a confident, grounded, obviously you've got a purpose, and, they're you know how valuable you are, and, those things like that. Do you feel like the pursuit of physical fitness taught you that? Like, because it's interesting, talking about kind of like using that dark fuel as a starting point. At some point, I would imagine there's a flip or an evolution, or is it a slow progression in your experience?
In my experience, I'm probably more stubborn than I wanted to admit, and maybe not the sharpest knife in the drawer. So I think it took a long time to flip to a more positive place, I think is what you're saying. Yeah, I think it took me a long time to grow up and to reach a comfortable level of self-acceptance.
Right.
I think that's what we're saying.
Yeah. There was this, you were talking to me a little bit, off camera about, and I'm hoping I get this correct, but the Appalachian Trail, and that you hiked that.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
It seemed like it was, somewhat of a I don't know, but a turning point in life. Do you mind sharing with me the story of, from the beginning, like what drove you to through hike the Appalachian Trail, and what was that like?
Yeah. It was the most amazing thing I've ever done in my life, aside from being a dad and a husband.
Did you do it by yourself?
I did it by myself.
All alone?
All alone, yeah. I mean, I made buddies.
Well, sure.
But, and you kind of walk, most people are walking similar mileages, so kind of stay in a trail family of sorts. But, started and completed on my own.
Wow.
Yeah.
And for everybody listening, how far is...
It's 2,167 miles.
Wow. But who's counting?
Right. 2,100 miles, a little over.
And how long did it take?
I used to know the exact days for me. I wasn't trying to be fast at all. Shy of 6 months, 5 months and change.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you hiked every day for 5 months?
For every day, yeah.
By yourself?
March 28th to September 7th was the day I summited Mount Baxter.
Wow.
Yeah.
I got to hear all about it.
Yeah, sure. I think I was looking for something. After I graduated college and I did AmeriCorps for a year. I was living in Los Angeles, and I heard about it a couple years before, and this roommate I was living with described it as akin to Mount Everest for backpackers. And I knew I didn't have any climbing skills, but I was looking for something in my life. I was looking for, what's the word now? I used to, in a lot of cultures, a boy will go out and to do something.
Like a rite of passage?
Rite of passage,
yeah.
That's it, yeah. And I kind of had a self-imposed rite of passage. And I remember I was working in corporate Boston. I could come back from this, from doing AmeriCorps. I finished that stint. I worked in corporate America for a bit in Boston, and I wasn't happy with my job. And my mom had said to me a couple things that were like, "Well, maybe you'll feel happy when you get a raise," or something else along those lines, which I think was trying to be motivating, and she's trying to look out for my well-being. But I was like, that is not motivating to me. I'm not living for. I don't want to live for the weekend at this point in my life, and I'm not pursuing a paycheck. That's not what's driving me, and. I got a job at a local outdoor shop and did some research and pretty much very limited backpacking and camping experience. Bought a one-way ticket to Atlanta and headed to Springer Mountain and started and learned a ton along the way. And it was kind of a doorway for me, and that's how I think of it, a doorway to a different chapter of my life. It took my life in a different direction.
Tell me more about that.
Changed the course of my life.
Well, and before then, actually, what do you think drove you? You mentioned that's a self-imposed rite of passage.
Yeah.
What do you think was driving that initiative to begin with? because that is an enormous undertaking for, somebody that young, that inexperienced, that big of a thing.
Yeah.
With no, there's no crowd, there's no, finish line festivities, there's no award at the, that is the epitome of a doing it for yourself journey, which is why I'm so fascinated about that. So walk me through let me get in your head a little bit prior to it. Like you had this desire for a for a rite of passage, or kind of a bridge to, somewhere else. What was the driving force behind that? What do you think, when you get to look back in hindsight, now older and wiser, of what was driving you think to even start a journey like that?
Yeah, I wish I had I wish I could say it differently, but I was trying to find a way to believe in myself. And that's pretty vulnerable to say, maybe hard to say, but yeah, that's it.
Because you felt like if you did something big enough, that you would believe in, you would then have that like self-confidence in that, and that belief in yourself from just a capability perspective.
Still looking outside myself, looking for whether maybe some people look for it in grades, or maybe a car or this or that, but I just felt I was just pretty lost and looked for a lot of reassurance externally. Maybe that drove some of the lifting, and I think that was the big driver, and being angry, and also maybe the isolation of it too was an appeal also. So which thank you for sharing that, and I think a lot of people can relate to that, like needing to believe in ourselves, idea. And in fact, I also think, I think there's a lot of positive, I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, giving ourselves evidence that we are capable of what we think we are, that we can do what we think we can. Yeah.
I think, and this is just, the world according to Ben, free advice is worth the price you pay, but there is some validity, I think, in like having that stack of evidence that we are capable, that we're strong, that there is that self-belief. Obviously, if we can get to the point where it's not coming from external validation is ideal. Yeah. But anyway, I think that's a very relatable component to that of
thanks
wanting to believe in yourself.
I knew I could keep putting one foot in front of the other. That's all I knew. So
in life and in through hiking.
I guess I learned that in life. Yeah, I wasn't sure about life, but I knew I could. I knew I could just keep walking.
So, and I want to hear about how it shifted your perspective on life afterwards. But before that, can you kind of walk me through what that experience is like? Like, what does it feel like when you're out there and you're by yourself and it's 4 months in and you're, walking through the mountains? Paint that picture for me.
You're removed from some parameters of society. Time is totally different. Days of the week are different. You learn to trust strangers. Hitchhiked a lot. Say, when you cross a road, you hitchhike to get food. We didn't have cell phones then. So hitchhike to get food, hitchhike back to the trail. I've stayed in strangers' houses just on the graciousness of others and the kindness of others. People would leave. There's some things. The trail had, like lots of sports, has its own vocabulary and subculture, I guess. You'd find a cooler with just a sign on it saying a trail angel with some sodas or maybe some sandwiches, things like that. So
how good's a soda?
Yeah, so good. You learn it gives you a different look on humanity.
Right.
Got to explore our country just when you come into towns in the South. Some things that resonate with me were I saw a small gas station in the middle of nowhere that had some KKK hats, and I was like, "Where am I?" And not common, but that just struck with me as that was just not something I experienced. I hitchhiked one time, and I had to get to a location, and the woman literally said to me, "Why don't you just take my car?" And my buddies hesitated, and I elbowed them. I'm like, "That would be amazing." And she gave us her car, and we left at the appropriate location. And
no way,
yeah, man,
she trusted strangers.
Yeah, I remember we were hitchhiking,
and you had to have
she had
been pretty rough. You're out on the trail.
Oh yeah, bearded, huge hair. She stink. And I remember she drove by. She had California plates, and the car said "Follow your bliss." And I was like, "That's our ride." And she came back around. She's like, "I couldn't leave you guys." And three of us, it was like myself and a couple. And hitchhiking with a lady always helps.
Right.
Yeah. So I think one of my personally one of the most impactful stories that I always hold on to. I was in that same gas station, and I was in Catawba, Virginia, and I had hiked. It was hammering out. We had the month of May. It rained for like 28 out of 30 days or something. And I used to ask myself, what's worse, mosquitoes or rain? Like, what's the worst? What's more challenging?
Right, pick your poison.
Yeah, and so come to this gas station in the middle of nowhere, and it seemed like every day life on the trail is very simple. All you gotta do is eat and walk, and not get hurt. And I said to my buddy, so we used to have this. We used to embellish with it a little bit, and we used to think that you would get one wish a day, one reasonable wish, like I'm going to get a great meal tonight, or something, or I'm going to sleep, I'm going to shower today. And you just would figure out how to way to. And more often than not, things would work out. And I said to my buddy, I'm like, I'm exhausted. We're going to get a dry place tonight. It's like, I don't know how. We have this little data book that has like, it tells you where water is and mileages to next stops and grocery stores and whatnot. But I don't know. It's just going to work out. And so I get to this gas station. It's early in the morning. And this older fella is behind the counter. And there's another customer next to me. And at a certain point, I asked him, I said, I'm sorry, sir, do you know if anybody has like a barn around here or something? I just looking to crash somewhere for a night. It's been hammering for a bit. And this other guy starts to interrupt, and I can't remember what he was saying, but he's being negative and kind of shutting it down. These were local people in the community. And I just remember this old man starts talking, and I just focus on him like he's Yoda. And I was just like, he's like, yeah, my buddy owns this place. I'll give him a call. There's a barn out back. I'm sure you can stay there. I'll let him know. And I was like, great, that would be amazing. And step outside, and I'm by myself. I had passed all my friends. It was just my one buddy that I was hiking with, just one person. And I couldn't find the barn. And I didn't know what he meant. I walked around for a bit, and finally I see this, I guess it's a cow holding pen for cows. And it's like almost tipping over. It's all metal. The grass was almost chest high, definitely waist high. And I was really frustrated. It's hammering out. And I'm about midway into the trip. And I open the door, I walk in, and I'm like, "What is going on?" And I was frustrated, and I realized I was at my breaking
like
point.
Yeah,
I was at my breaking point. I didn't think I was going home, but I was just sour, and I don't know what else is going to happen. I was like, "This sucks," and I kicked my foot. I pause, and this puff of dirt goes up, like it's very fine dirt, like chalk dust. And I just kind of, I said, what? And I kicked it again. And then I heard the rain pattering on the roof. And I was like, oh,
it's dry.
It's dry. And I looked around, and I saw that there were strings hanging with a little stick, like a letter T across, where hikers had hung their food bags before. I'm like, oh, hikers have been here. And I looked around, I'm like, no, and in the corner, there was a bunch of plywood. There was a makeshift bed or a platform for sleeping bags. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to make it. God, it was my break. And I went back to the convenience store. I bought like a little cheapy Walkman, powdered donuts, and a couple 40s. Well, my buddy shows up, and we put on like an Atlanta Braves game. And I knew then I would make it.
Luxury.
Yeah. And I would make it.
That is wild.
Yeah.
So tell me, and I relate to it quite a bit. I run ultras,
Sure, yeah.
And recently in March, I ran a 100-miler, and gosh, how impactful a powdered donut can be.
Oh my goodness!
When you're outside, and I mean, it's like you're totally. It's an interesting thing, like when you push yourself, when you truly push yourself to your limits. Like I tell people that your feet hurt when your eyes are swollen. Like, to the limit and beyond, and there's somebody at an aid station giving you some Coca-Cola, or whatever. And it's like, it strips you raw to the point where like, you can't help but feel things in a different way. Like one of the things, and I'm curious about if you experienced this, but the best way I've experienced it best way I can explain it when running ultras is that I think sometimes in life, people put artificial parameters on the highs and the lows that we allow ourselves to feel. Like we don't let ourselves dream too big, or we have protective barriers up, to limit the pain or, limit the risks or whatever. And it's like we have this compressed highs and lows in life because of protective mechanisms.
Sure.
And when you're out on the trail, whether it's running 100 miles in a day or walking 2,000 miles in 5 months, you get to experience uninhibited highs and lows.
Mm-hmm.
There are no parameters on it. Like, and they just crank, and it's the coolest thing. Like, and it's helped me then take that into life afterwards of like how powerful it is to feel it, you know, like to experience the highs and the lows. And like, I don't know, there's something about it that just changes how you experience the normal daily stuff because you've been able to have such, you know, those wide varying waves.
Yeah. I'm not sure if you're also saying from being so uncomfortable, just appreciating things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. Clean socks, cotton socks. Yeah.
Who would have thought what a game changer?
Light switch, running water.
Right.
Yeah. Simple things.
Yeah. A warm jacket.
Yeah.
You know, whatever.
Yeah.
And then it, you know, and it's interesting because then it sort of like, I don't know, changes your perspective on adversity and stuff. Like you're like, I joke, but I mean it seriously now that I've done more for less. You know what I mean? Like I've ran 100 miles with a little buckle. Like I can get through the long day today or you know, the trial of the week or whatever it is. Yeah. So anyway, sorry for the anecdote.
No, you're
I'm curious then, walk me through now reality. You know, how did that experience change how you approach life, your perspective of life and your priorities? And because you had kind of mentioned that, you know, it was a door opener.
Yeah.
And kind of changed the path or the trajectory of your life.
Yeah.
Walk me through that.
I think I did reach that point of saying I can.
Like you genuinely believed in yourself?
I knew I was capable of far more at that point. And I just on a simple level, I really was one of the things I don't love getting in a bind, but I love having to be resourceful. Say simple things, saying wearing socks for gloves when you're ill prepared. Having to find a way to fill a water bottle up in a stream that's only a ½ inch deep. How are you going to fill that up? Are you going to use a leaf as a funnel? Stuff like that. To your filtration system or stuff, or just having to rely on others, or just being, like you just said, I think you said in a podcast I heard earlier of yours, you know, you knew you were strong enough you could get your kids out of a certain location. Right. If you can handle an ultra, we can walk. It's not, you know, we just getting outside comforts of modern life. I think that added a layer of resiliency to me.
Yeah. And then how has that impacted, you know, career trajectories, life change, you know, the path afterwards?
I think it's helped me socially a lot. I think I was working in corporate America before, and going back after I finished the trail, or even especially during the trail, when you go into a supermarket and you're filthy, or when you're standing in the local laundromat and basically a pair of just shorts, or say I had a raincoat around my waist, and just because you're washing everything, just be how you're treated by others, and when I would hike the Appalachian Trail, towards the end, like, I mean, say when I returned to Boston, guys that were homeless would be like, hey, what's up, man? You know, whereas maybe before I felt a gap there, and I'd say, what's up back? Whereas before, when I was in my shirt and tie, I might have felt removed or uncomfortable, and now I'm like, oh, we're all people. And it kind of removed some of those layers that we can protect ourselves in.
Right.
And made me feel like I could relate more to people.
Right.
Having gotten dirty and having some challenges.
And then do you think that's helped with your ability now to work with your clients and your patients? And, you know, because I kind of want to come back to that theme of the why, you know, and how powerful that is on people's physical fitness journeys, but also their health, you know, journeys in general.
Yeah.
Do you think that your ability to connect with people and kind of have that perspective has changed your approach to personal training, your work even as a nurse practitioner, and kind of how you interact with patients or clients?
Yeah, I think so. I think the best thing that I offer my clients and my patients, both of them in the fitness world and in healthcare, is that I first try to connect with them. I try to understand where they're coming from, and I try to provide a sense of support. Sometimes I'll say, don't judge me because I wear these hospital clothes. And similarly, I mean, don't think of me a certain way because you might think maybe I'm fit or maybe I'm this or that. Like, we're all people. We've all had challenges. So if you're going through a hard time, like, I hear you. Let's talk about it. Let's whereas I think maybe having not had those experiences, I might shy away from that. It might be uncomfortable. But for me now, I lean into those places, whether it's an injury physically or whether it's an injury otherwise. I try to lean in and nurture those areas. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
No, you did, because I'm curious of kind of like what then has been the impact of that. Like, why do you think that that's important? That ability to connect and kind of lean in on on a deeper level when it comes to to physical fitness.
I think people are craving connection. I mean, I think that's what podcasts are about. And I think, especially with our phones, and I think everybody lives a fast-paced life, even living in rural Colorado. I think we live a fast-paced, I think life is busy for all of us. And so when I can make a connection with someone, I think people are craving that. And so I think in order for somebody to have buy-in, whether it's why I want you to take your meds or why I want you to start going for a walk, I think if I can establish some trust, I'm going to get a lot further with that person.
It seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I can sense from you this, and I have for as long as I've known you, but this passion for what you do, like that you have a genuine desire to help people, like to impact people. Where does that come from?
My family, for sure. I feel like that's how I was raised, and I just had amazing grandparents, and particularly I think about my grandfather was an immigrant from Italy, and so I just think of he was just one of my heroes. And
so is Zappone, is that the right pronunciation?
I don't correct people when they say Zappone. I don't, but I ask my dad about it sometimes, and apparently my grandfather would say Zappone and my grandma would say Zappone.
Right.
My dad, I think, they didn't learn Italian growing up. I think they just want him to acclimate to American culture. And
so then that's when it kind of evolved to Zappone?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've tried, when I've had jobs out of town, I've tried to use my full name, Phill, Zappone, but I had trouble sticking with it. I think I caught myself a couple times and when I was hurrying, it didn't quite flow.
Yeah.
But I don't, when people say it, I just, yes, that's how you say it.
Good enough. Right.
Yeah, I like it kind of.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to get you off track, but I didn't realize that your grandpa, immigrated. So then, and I guess because that was just 2 generations.
Yeah, so I feel second generation American. So that to me, having just grown up hearing stories of his work ethic or how long he was able to go to school before he was had to support family and some challenges that he faced, makes me connect with other people, patients who are also going through challenges, whether it's immigrating to the United States or whether it's health issues or education issues or socioeconomics. I'm not sure where I heard it from, but I've always abided by to whom much is given, much is expected. And so I've always kind of felt like a leader. I always have always felt like a leader. And so I feel that it's a responsibility to pay it forward.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think that comes from the immigrant mindset or like that? I sometimes wonder, like it's a curiosity of mine. It's like the chicken or egg dilemma, right? Like, is it in the Zappone blood to be like this, or did it happen because of experiences and things like that? Like, for example, your grandfather, choosing to come to the United States. There's common threads though in that and hiking the Appalachian Trail. They're different versions of of similar journeys, so to speak. Mm-hmm. My dad always says, and I love it, that I've never met a strong person with an easy past. You know what I mean? And so it's interesting to hear you say, like, you got this perspective of to whom much is given, much is expected. Meanwhile, though, there's this, and I don't know your whole story, but there's a journey where nothing was given. You know what I mean? But yet you have this kind of like abundance mindset and this like gratitude, attitude. And I'm just kind of curious if you think that came from, is that a common thread in your family, or is that something that maybe you've learned through your journeys?
I think I've practiced it in my journeys. I would say I've learned it from my family and from my dad, just to look out for others, whether it's from his military experience or whether it was from him, how he was raised. But you hear my voice cracking up a little bit. I think my brothers emulate that too. My sister, just to look out for your neighbors, look out for others. I think all my brothers, if we were having some friction, but if someone was over there or someone was nearby that needed help, we would just stop what we were doing.
Right.
Yeah, that's just obvious.
That
takes precedence.
Right.
Yeah.
What a healthy perspective.
Yeah.
I want to get into your head a little bit more on that because, there's, Well, I don't know. I love that abundance mindset. I relate to you in that sense. You know, like it's funny because I wrestle with this back and forth of like, I am insanely driven, sometimes almost to a fault. Like, want to change the world. I want to be, I want to like build this amazing life for my family. I want to make a ton of money. I want to be healthy. Like, all these things.
Love it.
But I'm also simultaneously extremely grateful for what I've got. Like I'm able to, and it's something that's almost become like a superpower of mine, is that I can balance that like drive and gratitude, simultaneously. And it seems like you've got some of that you've got that too, of like you're wanting to be the best version of yourself and you're pursuing it, but you also have this sort of like gratitude mindset, and I'm fascinated with that because it's so. Well, it's such a great it's such a great mentality to have.
Yeah, thanks. Maybe it's the flip side of that immigrant family. I just felt like I was blessed.
Yeah. Well, actually, and that's where I was going to, I think some of mine has come from because it's all been earned. You know what I mean? So like the little house, I'm super grateful for because it's my little house, you know?
Definitely.
Like the whatever it is, it's like, I don't know. There's some power in building it.
Mm-hmm. When it's yours. Yeah.
Whether it's our bodies, our minds, or our careers, or our companies, or whatever. There's something I think empowering about doing it. And maybe it comes back to that self-belief. Idea, like knowing that we can.
Can I bounce one at you?
Yeah.
Okay. As a cardiovascular, as an athlete, just period, as an athlete, do you think that you have a set of options available that others might not, who aren't as fit as you?
Ooh.
I would think you do.
Yeah.
There's things that are accessible to you, and that's a pretty cool feeling.
For sure.
Whether it's helping in a time of need or something else. It's not just about running up mountains.
Right. Like it's fun and confidence building to know that like I could go do the thing.
Yeah.
I could go help in that way.
You could say that financially too, I'm sure, but you're in a place where you could help your neighbor. You could do something. You have that that's accessible to you.
Yeah. Well, and actually it's an interesting concept. I'm curious your take on it, but it's kind of that like you have to help yourself in order to help others.
Definitely.
Like a lot of my drive, my motivation to be the best version of myself has been selflessly driven. It's like, I want to be a good dad. I want to be a good provider, be a good husband, but in order to do that, I've got to be the best version of myself.
Yeah.
Which for a lot of people, I think can be counterintuitive.
I heard that a long time ago and it made perfect sense. Just that I think it was around the trail. I think I was on a Greyhound bus or something. And this mother just told me that, like, just that she can't be her best if her tank isn't, she's not putting some fuel into her tank.
Right.
Taking care of yourself. So I think self-care is critical.
Yeah.
In order to produce.
How do you fuel your tank?
How do I fill my tank?
Yeah.
I've really been thinking a lot about mindset lately. We nutrition's huge, I think, in our culture, or, at least in maybe circles that we might visit. And I think when we say mindset, I think underneath it, I hear the word mental health, and I'm starting to look at it about and explore things that are proactive with mental health, rather than just being reactive or, I only need to pursue a professional in mental health when, say, there's some crisis. I'm starting to think about both personally and I think as for our patients, if we're trying to promote optimization, if you will, how can we build positive mindsets? Kind of list my trade, we're actively pursuing a fitness level, a look, something, or nutrition in order to get such and such lab results. Well, can we also be proactive with our mindset? I think that.
Tell me more about that, because you had a social media post a while back. I actually wrote it down. It's interesting that we got here organically, but the words you wrote was promoting mental health and well-being through fitness.
Yeah,
and I thought that was interesting that you led with that mental health and well-being. Not promoting, and you've even told me in meetings before, not trying to make fit people fitter.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but I think that's a unique. And I don't know every personal trainer, obviously, but I think that it's a unique approach and perspective that you bring to the table of starting with mental health and well-being. That's the primary goal through fitness.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that and your philosophy on promoting mental health and well-being through fitness?
Yeah. I think it's an act, just like the way you like the way you might massage a sore muscle. I think you can massage or work out and develop better mental habits for ourselves. And so just even telling my patients when they walk in the room, I'm glad you're here. Thanks for coming. I mean, I have a job. Sometimes they'll say, well, sorry to bother you. I'm like, I have a job because you're here. I'm glad you're here and you're not bothering me. I think
Because that purposely puts you into a gratitude mindset? Is that what you're saying?
for me?
Yeah, or letting them feel comfortable. Like,
I want them to feel comfortable. I want them to, if I'm really committed to helping them impact their life, I can talk till I'm blue in the face. I need them on board with it. So if I'm sensing hesitation, or if they're verbalized to me, people don't generally verbalize I have self-esteem issues, but they might say depression, or like, yeah, it's not something, or that's what they talk about, depression. And so if they're into exercise, I use the word movement, just because I think moving our bodies is foundational to health. Does not have to be, I'm not promoting that people start bench pressing.
right.
But I do ask that they move their body. At the smallest common denominator that I might throw at them is something like, can you just park at the other end of Walmart when you go, or Home Depot here in Durango? Can you just take the long route? Can just start moving more. Our bodies are made to move, and that being inducing positive effects for the mind. So first I need them to have some buy-in, and then I can tell them the how. The how is easy. You can just go online and get a workout for just type in your age, what you want to do. I want to lose weight. I want to get jacked. I want to do this, and you'll get a workout. But I think the connection with another person is what they're looking for.
Right. Yeah. Tell me more about that. Those like simple changes in how you've seen them impact the mind. You know, how I want to unpack that a little bit more about those correlations between movement and the mind, and, you know, exercise and mental health, and kind of, you know, I'm envisioning an example here where, you know, you said park further away at Home Depot or whatever, but talk to me about the impact of that, and like, you know, how that changes, how these things get related, and how it can kind of evolve.
That's a big one. Let me think here. Like, what outcomes have I seen, or how do I get someone who, say, I'm thinking mental health in this situation. How do I get somebody on board with why I want them to move?
Yeah, both, I guess. You know, because I'm curious to see, you know, like if somebody's listening right now and they're struggling with mental health, and, you know, there's this idea that some more movement, you know, unpack that.
Yeah, so I break it. I don't just start with movement, but I break it. And when I manage depression, I break it into doable pieces. I'll say, well, you know, I can't really change some of these stressors that you've mentioned, but can you just, and I try to make them, I try to go for the low-hanging fruit and attainable things. Like, can you just drink some more water? Can we start, like, I don't talk about removing anything until I start adding some things in. Like, can we add in some vegetables? Just a couple. I'm talking to someone, I was talking about smoking cigarettes. I'm like, well, can we just decrease the hours on either end that you're smoking? Can you just make your first cigarette at 10 a.m. or maybe 12 or noon rather than 8 a.m.? And can we just decrease it on the other end? I'm not asking you to quit. Just, can we just do that? So that's where so along the same lines with movement, I sometimes hear a lot of patients talk about, like, you know, self-loathing, or just sitting there and just ruminating. And I ask them to identify what things rejuvenate them. I call it a toolbox. And I say, sometimes when we're feeling down, you just identify these things that make you feel good. But sometimes when we're feeling down, we don't lean into that box. Now is the time to reach into your toolbox for those things. It's time to call that friend. It's time to either go for that walk that you want to do, or do the drawing, or listen to that music that you want to do. So just, you know, expanding on the idea of movement.
Right.
Beyond fitness. Just moving your body and really getting busy.
Right.
And then if I can also have them outside, that's just a double win. Yeah.
Why is outside a double win?
Just because we're just, it's just healthy for us. It's just good stuff. You know, just sunshine.
You mean we're not meant to just be under these fluorescent lights all day?
I've always said, when I was an RN, I always said that was my goal. I hope to not pass under fluorescent lights.
Me too, man.
Yeah.
And I spend most of my time under them, but 100%, I can't think of a worse place to go than under the fluorescent lights. Yeah. Very sincerely, though, I had to do that. But tell me more about the power of being outside, specifically movement outside.
Well, I'm a gym guy, but if I can, outside of, I don't have the luxury of those gyms that pop open the garage doors and whatnot, but if I can I've definitely tried to train like an athlete over the years, and when I do my cardiovascular work, which is a variety of things, I'll do it outside. We lived in just outside the Arctic Circle for 3 years, and I did a little bit of research, just how well the body's adapted to training in the cold. And so I just don't use that as an excuse. I just go. The darkness is a little bit challenging for me, but I still go. I put on a headlamp and I go.
Yeah.
But I think, and I even think getting outside without headphones, I think, I'm kind of all over the place here, but if we're talking about health, I really think people underestimate the importance of stillness and silence. So stillness, you can be running and having some, inner stillness, but I think those things are critical to health. I think about our vibrational frequency, whether that relates to anxiety or constant cell phone use or whatever. I think about our vibrational frequency a little bit. That's a little woo-woo, but
hey, I'm all about woo-woo.
Okay, all right.
You know what's funny and why I am is because because it works, because it's true, because it's real. Like these natural things about us, like that maybe sound woo-woo or feel weird to talk about, and then though you experience it and you're like, oh yeah, that there's validity there.
Yeah, and I think usually a lot of those things are really simple, but like, oh, that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. I just literally today, I was running outside in the cold, so you'd be proud of me.
Yeah.
But my headphone fell out of my ear.
Yes.
And the second it hit the ground, I stepped on it. I was so proud because there were these expensive what are they? Anyway, they're the Pro, like
fancy.
Yeah. And they're busted, and I'm like, gosh dang it. So anyway, I had to finish my run without headphones in, and there was something, and I run somewhat regularly without music on, but there is a different experience. When you don't have those other distractions. Did some of that come? Because and here's what I'm curious about too, because obviously now I know we had our time on the trail and like these life experiences, and then you have your formal education, like you're studied, and you've got these accreditations and things like that. Has it been one of those where like some things you experienced and then now you get to study, like the stillness and the just those like the movement things? Because one of the things that I'm fascinated with is that I've sort of been able to have these. I've been lucky enough that my instincts are good. Like
it's great.
Tabitha and I talked about it even. I'm like, I paid attention to some signals that my body sent, and I'm like, I'm going to make a change or whatever. But I've never been the guy that's like, until recently when I get to podcasts and talk to people like you, but I've never had like the evidence backing it. It's been mostly anecdotal or trusting my gut. But it seems like you've got a little bit of a background or story where you've gotten to experience both the School of Hard Knocks and school.
Some, yeah.
Do they overlap?
Often they do. I can't speak fully to it because those are things I like to explore more. But I think simplicity trumps a lot of things.
Yeah.
So oftentimes those things, say in some difficult experiences we had, whether it's running, whether it's camping, or this or that, and listening to your body, I would think those are all simplifying things, and your body's just telling you, hey, this is what's happening right now, and then later finding the research to support it is pretty cool.
Right.
I hear what you're saying. I can't speak too much to that, but something I'm interested in, and I have some of it.
So let me reframe it then. How do you think your life experience has influenced your approach to your professional work?
Yeah. I feel a little different than my colleagues at times, and in terms of relating to patients, and I think it's because I've had a variety of jobs, and I was going to say late to my career. I've done a lot of things with my life before. I've been a wanderer. I was nomadic as a bachelor, and starting with the trail as a young adult, and then having tried out different things, having had ups and downs. So when patients come in, whether different walks of life, I feel pretty able to connect with people.
Yeah. Which I think is, it's power. It's critical. That ability to connect.
Yeah.
Is that where you get the most fulfillment? Talk to me about your enjoyment in your field, and where you find the most fulfillment or most satisfaction in your work.
Yeah, being there for another person in a time of need. I would think that would apply to all of us. Being there for someone in a difficult time. They tell you this in nursing school, and you think it's kind of fluffy, or I don't really think I knew what to make of it. But when you have people later on say, "Hey, you impacted my life," or "You were there for me when a family member passed," and you hear that years later in the supermarket, you're like, and I usually don't remember them, but pretty cool.
How does that feel?
It makes me feel like I'm living right. Yeah.
Tell me more about it, because I can tell that there's I don't know, I can just tell that you bring this genuine care to your work, and I want to hear more about it.
I try to. Yeah, it's more than a job for me. I don't think I knew it was a calling when I was younger, but I think I tell my patients, I've been fortunate enough to watch babies born, especially as an ER nurse or as a student, and as a floor nurse, I've seen people take their last breath, and I have to, in my role as a clinician, I have to sometimes diagnose cancer and get the next step set up for people, or get people set up with hospice. And so to support patients in difficult times, it makes everything else in life outside of family, it just makes everything else that we deal with, phones, news, entertainment, all those things, just seem very superficial. I feel like you're in the trenches with people, and you're there side by side with them. And I don't think I understood how, medicine is both a science, but it's also very intimate.
Yeah.
At least for me it is. And I consider it an honor to be there, to be able to walk alongside someone.
That's what I can sense from you, is that there's like this combination of emotion and science. Mm-hmm. It's like there's this collision of background and experience and perspective that, I think makes for a pretty powerful combination.
Yeah. I tell people sometimes, especially even in the hospital, I've worked at the hospital I'm at now for many years, in different roles. But all of them, I think, pretty sure back in the day, babies were born at home and grandparents died, and oftentimes in someone's house, and people are removed from that.
Right.
So I kind of consider, I'm not sure if health insurance does, or if we can sense that from, say, it's still a business. I get that, but for me, it's a sacred place. It's a safe place. It's a sacred place. I tell them to come back anytime.
If you could, earlier you were talking to me about, you're kind of talking about this example of like, an elderly patient that's at a fall risk, and,
Mm-hmm.
How to incorporate, the personal training, the physical fitness side of things into it. I want to hear more about that. And what my question was going to be, that I just wanted to preface with that, is, if you could change the approach to people's health and wellness, and kind of like, the way the medical system's working and things like that. Talk to me about, like, philosophically, your approach to that, and maybe using that example of, the fall risk patient or things like that.
Yeah. Well, I'm not a businessman. I'd like to learn more about business, but I do not like to do fast food style medicine. I don't like to do drive-through medicine, so to speak. I do not like to practice from a sense of herding cattle, if you will. Get them in, get them out, and just, something wrong, here's a pill, see ya, next. That's not how I like to treat others. That's not how I want to be treated. So having some more time would be nice. And then on the patient end of things, I like to empower patients. I want them they're in charge of their health. I'm just a guide. I'm here to help. I'm not responsible for your outcomes, but let's work together. So I try to educate them where I can to take responsibility for. I've been starting to tune into these pillars, I think, of health. What we're doing with our body and what you're putting in your body as foundational.
Meaning exercise and diet?
Exercise and diet, yeah. And exercise does not have to be I clarify that. It does not have to be in a gym.
Movement.
I like movement. I like going to the gym. You don't have to go to the gym, but I do want you moving your body, stuff like that.
So tell me more about that. Pillars of health. You were kind of I interrupted you, but those ideas of that there's kind of like, I don't know, a holistic look to it, but those pillars.
Well, I think it's real. I think it's, again, going back to what you're saying about, I think we both said it, simplifying things. It amazes me that a lot of the diseases we manage are a problem of abundance. I don't think that's as common in the world. I think there's a lot of areas where there's food and water lacking, maybe shelter and other things needed for survival. I was going to say nutrients, but the fact that a lot of Americans or Western diets, a lot of the diseases we manage in primary care are due to abundance. I took a little video for my buddies the other day. I was just standing around, and everywhere I could turn in 360 degrees, there was food everywhere. Just what candy jar, this, that. There was donuts out. Somebody's grandma brought in cookies. Someone just made fresh tamales. There's stuff everywhere, and it's delicious. I love it, but teaching patients to prioritize their health and to make choices that are, I try to get them on board with taking responsibility for their health,
right,
and just simplifying it. It's not magic. It's not magic. There's no new supplement you need to take. Portion control. Dial back the sugar. Eat some veggies. Just start moving your body. Some water, maybe some protein, whatever that looks like for you, and let's get moving.
Yeah,
that's about it.
Tell me more about that. Like, that idea of simplifying the health. Like, let's say somebody's listening right now that they know that you got to make some changes, and and especially nowadays we get so bombarded with information, and gosh, you start scrolling Instagram, it's like, holy cow,
information overload.
Do I need to be doing an ice bath? Do I need to be all the there's like trending stuff. There's your doctor says to take this medication. My aunt says to do this. Whatever. There's all these different things. Walk me through, just like at the most basic level, what does it mean to simplify our health?
That the person who should be most looking out for your health is you, is the patient.
Like taking accountability, taking
accountability. Yeah, taking accountability. I think most people know what it means to eat well. I just don't think everybody's practicing that. I think and I don't blame them. It's not irritating to me. I do think that you run a marketing company. I think marketing's effective. So when I think of food marketing in the food industry,
right.
So I've been thinking about, I think it's Pringles. It's like once you pop, you just can't stop.
Right.
And that theme like that I'm sure there's lots of companies. I can't grab any right now, but where it's telling you to eat more.
Yeah, that you can't have just one.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. And so it just struck me. I was on a phone call the other day with college roommates, and there was 4 of us, and all of them identified as being obese. And so one of them's an athlete. One of them's a triathlete, but he calls himself fit fat, and he's being humorous, but it's kind of shocking what we see in the story is the same in primary care. It's over and over again. It's the same. And not much is changing. So I had a patient the other day with pretty high blood sugar, and I almost on the cusp of needing insulin. And he said, well, should we just increase my metformin? And I was kind of struck by him. And I said, well, we could, but this medicine is secondary to what you're doing. The choices you're making every day, this medicine helps, but you have to do your part. I want you on board with this. And this is what you're doing takes precedence. That's primary. This medicine is secondary. And this medicine's not magic. None of them are. Maybe antibiotics, maybe, but you have to be engaged with taking care of yourself.
And do you think that there's an argument that component is more powerful than the medication side of things? Like our own choices, that accountability, and for the example of, high blood sugar or whatever, that lifestyle changes are more impactful than, the medication side of it?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think lifestyle changes are foundational. And I think they're taught to us in school that they're like a component of, but I think they're primary.
Foundational.
I think they're foundational, 100%. Are you staying well hydrated? Are you eating some vegetables? That's why I ask people, are you eating some vegetables? Are you drinking enough water? Are you moving your body? Period. And that can be hard. It can be hard. You have a single mom or somebody who's working 2 jobs. Like that can be a lot to ask of them, and time can be limited. But I try to find ways to work with those parameters and support them on their health journey.
Yeah. And I gotta imagine that that's somewhat frustrating as a practitioner. Like, I don't know, kind of that tug of war of buy-in, accountability. And though, the kind of common conception that you're supposed to treat it.
Yeah. I don't find it, how'd you word it?
Frustrating?
Yeah, that's right. It can be. I guess, it all depends on the vibe in the room, the attitudes, mine, theirs.
Right.
But No, I think the message is solid, and I don't think anything's going on. I don't think the food industry's changing. I don't think marketing. I have an Alexa device in my kitchen that I'd like to get rid of, but it just keeps showing commercials for food or for this or that. And I don't think these diagnoses we're seeing, diabetes, hyperlipidemia, obesity, I don't think they're going anywhere.
Yeah.
But I think when you start giving people tools to feel empowered and to feel they have some control, then we can start making some headway.
Right.
And I think, and then maybe expanding, you had asked me before about a why. I try to ask patients their why, whether it's fitness or whether it's for in a healthcare setting. So I've asked one guy, I ask people about, I ask them to find their motivation. More often than not, it means family. So I've asked somebody, can you just put a picture of your grandkid on your pack of cigarettes? Can you do that for me? Because, if that's your motivation, that you want to be there for your grandkid, we're asking to make a change. Let's do that. Or put it on your phone or something like that, Marlboro's not looking out for you, buddy.
Right. Yeah.
Doritos is not looking out for you. They're looking out for their bottom line.
Right.
So they're good, but hanging out with your family is a lot cooler. Hanging out,
way cooler.
having adventures in the mountains. Now that's cool.
Way cooler.
Yeah.
Yeah. You early off camera today, we were talking with some of my team members, and you had mentioned something. I forget exactly how you worded it, but it was basically what we're talking about is the power of placebo.
Yeah.
And the way I take that is the power of the mind.
Correct.
Can you talk me through your perspective and your take on what's? Gosh, I got to remember. You said what's the most important thing in?
He was asking me about a peptide.
Yeah.
And I've used it myself. It's BPC 157, and I haven't seen positive results with it with myself on numerous occasions. And I say numerous occasions, not like single injections, but treatment period, numerous treatment periods at different points in my life, or with patients, or in the research I've done. I think it can be effective for some GI issues, but the strongest medicine in all of pharmacology is the placebo.
There it is. Say that for me one more time.
The strongest medicine in all of pharmacology is the placebo. So when someone believes in something, that's when they found the greatest impact on the results. Like, you see studies like people who have bigger, more positive results if a pill is bigger, if you have to take more of it, if something's uncomfortable, like terrible tasting, we're associating it with a greater impact. So that's that plays into that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
In fact, from the depths of the memory, but I remember at one point reading an article about a certain medication that actually Red Bull. No, not the best.
Right.
But
medication, right.
But they actually made the drink taste worse, so that people would think
a little extra charge.
Yeah, that they changed the formula that it was too good.
Yeah,
and they found that if they made it taste worse, people believed in the effectiveness more.
Yeah.
That is wild.
Maybe you should just use some dark fuel.
Yeah, maybe dip into the past trauma.
To your demons.
Yeah. But that's crazy. Like, I want to unpack that a little bit. The most impactful variable in pharmaceuticals is the placebo.
Something like that.
Yeah,
something along those lines. Like I think a lot of ER nurses could speak to it. Like when someone, not just their toleration for narcotics, but when someone is struggling, say, with anxiety, and is just, you can see people who, I wouldn't say they fight off a medication, but are completely resistant to you have to allow them. You have to want the
medicine.
To
let it work.
Yeah, you have to, as powerful as they are, you have to let the medicine, you have to collaborate with them, be like, yeah, this is they gave this stuff for me to help with this pain, and allow it to do its job. And when they're completely resistant, not just because some people may be tolerant or maybe they have a drug history, but there's those situations. It's wild to watch. It's the power
crazy.
Of the mind. Yeah,
so crazy. Mm-hmm. So I have a presentation that's like the about how powerful our minds are.
Sure.
There's all these like stats about it and whatever, but they did a study. So they took house cleaners, maids at a hotel, house cleaners, and they divided them up. So there was a control group and then a sample group. Mm-hmm. And they told the sample group that what they were doing was good exercise.
Okay.
They did the same thing. They physically did the same
sure
for 3 months or whatever. And the group that was told that what they were doing was good exercise lost weight and had a reduction in waist size.
Yeah, I love it.
The group that didn't.
Yeah.
How fascinating is
Fascinating.
that? How and such a reminder of how freaking powerful our minds are.
So powerful.
And they did the same physical movements.
Yeah.
Their
work responsibilities.
Yep.
You're saying. Yeah.
And saw drastically different results.
Yeah.
Because they were told that it would be impactful. And that like when you brought that up the other day, I'm sorry I didn't get to it sooner in this podcast, because I was like, that to me, what that says, the power of the placebo, that just ties it right back into how powerful our minds are.
Oh, completely. There a similar study. I probably won't get all the details right, but they had I think it was just men, older fellas, elderly men, and they put them in maybe an apartment. I don't know how they slept over there. I don't know the whole story, but the setting they were in had like magazines from when they were in their 20s and 30s of like Sports Illustrated, of like stuff from their colleges, and like some of the clothes might have been up that way. The pictures on the wall, it was all reminiscent of when they were younger, and they stayed there for a period of time, and there was measurable, more positive results.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Maybe some newspapers were there, maybe some stuff like from Eisenhower or what. I don't know what it was fascinating.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's where like you were mentioning, when your patients walk in, you're like, hey, I'm glad you're here or whatever. Like those little things, I think that sometimes people miss how impactful those because you're intentional about that. That's what I can tell is that like you've figured out these things that work for you, your patients, whatever it might be. And how hugely impactful those can be when they're stacked up.
We started this conversation talking a little bit about maybe some demons and maybe a little bit of my history of how I got into fitness. And I had this really interesting training session the other day with this lady that I've trained a couple times now. We have a really good rapport. And I said to her, I do a coaching call too during the week, and she was on it. And I said, what I really want to say to these people is, and you can pardon my profanity, but I was like, I really want to ask people to bring a little fuck you to their workouts. And this is an older lady. She's like 73 or so. She's like, I love that. I'm like, and I started, and I got into it with her. I'm like, and I said, I had her, first thing I did is I tried to get her to engage her whole body while she was working out. I had her doing chest press with dumbbells, but I first had her push me. And I said, don't just push me with your arms, push me away with using your legs. And so as you push me, and she did that. And then I said, now picture, and she has this amazing dog. It's this fancy poodle, and it's got ribbons in its hair and stuff. And I said, now I want you to think that someone's hurt. I said, I'm just putting this out there. And she said, hurting my dog? And I said, yeah. And she kind of lit up. And then she's like, that was amazing. And she could feel it go through her system. And so we had talked about, I had said, I don't use dark fuel anymore. But at the same time, if you can tap into some of that emotion. So when I bring someone in the room and I say, hey, I'm really glad you're here, what I'm also saying is, I've got time for you. Like, forget this dynamic that we're supposed to fit into in this 15-minute window. Like, we're here together. Like, let's work on some things.
Right.
Like, that's how we're saying screw you back to this pressure that we feel as clinicians that we're going to make a difference in this moment.
Right.
Yeah, so there is a little bit of edge there for me. Or when I'm with these clients who are not exercising, I was saying to her, I'm just going to say her name's Sue. I'm like, nobody messes with Sue, right? It's your like a couple more, Sue. I'm like, and I was talking to her. She's exercising, and she was loving it, and just getting her fired up. And so I think that was a healthy way to use some big emotions.
Right. Well, and that's what I think is so cool about what you do and what's so unique about your background. I mean, like you said, earlier we talked about kind of like, the demons and the journey and the dark fuel.
Sure.
You understand the power of the mind. You know what I mean? And it's cool because while you work on bodies, that side of it, you're using the mind to make that happen. And I think it's so hard to articulate, but like that's what's happening, in throughout the process is it's all about and even you mentioned it earlier, believing in ourselves.
Yeah.
Like the belief that we can get stronger.
Yeah.
I believe that we can get better. I know a lot of people that are getting older.
Yeah.
And they just say, well, I'm getting older. It's like, no, you can feel the best you've ever felt if you believed it, you can.
I had this little light bulb moment. This lady said to me, and I think she's like, well, I only want to do chair yoga or exercises from a chair. And I was like, and I thought to myself, well, that's cool. I mean, I'm into it, but that's not an excuse not to work hard. Like, if we're going to do some chair yoga, let's do some chair yoga. Let's do this. And from that I also expanded on it. I was like, oh, exercise is about continual adaptation. We're going to keep, wherever you're at, we're going to keep trying to push that boundary a little bit. So those two concepts, but we're just that concept of hard work and continual adaptation was just very clear to me by her statement. I think she thought it was like a hall pass. It was like, we're going to do some chair yoga. We're going to do this.
We're going to get after it in the chair.
Right. Like that. Yeah.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
Tell me about the just kind of like your approach to this and how it's evolved to your perspective as a father. and kind of, the when you take off the professional hat, put on the father hat, and the importance of, the mindset and movement and things like that. How does that translate to when you're parenting?
Well, I think it's a driver for me to stay healthy. I feel I started a family. I had our first child when I was 39, and our second one I was 44. And so I always do the math on it. And I always exaggerate to people. I'm like, oh, I'll be about 72 when my little girl's in high school. But so it's a motivator for me to stay in shape, make good choices, stuff like that. And I think we try to promote a healthy lifestyle to our children. I've questioned whether my lifestyle promotes any body dysmorphia, to be honest. But what I do try to promote to them is independence, self-reliance, taking care of yourself, and taking care of others.
Right.
Those are at least the values that I try to promote.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so great.
Yeah. Thanks.
Phill, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
For being here.
Yeah.
And I just got to tell you, the way that you've been able to sort of like, I don't know, to way concisely and way oversimplify it, but, to take the dark fuel and to evolve it into, this mission that you're on to help people and, all of these different themes that we touched on, but just like with this abundance mindset you have and the gratitude and the power of the mind and your mission to empower people and change lives. And, like you said here, promoting mental health and well-being through fitness. I mean, all these things, it's refreshing for me. And every time I get to talk to you, I'm like, oh, this is, the world needs more of it, because it's, it's fun to see you obviously leading by example, but then also for you to take it seriously enough to get after chair yoga, or whatever it might be. And so I want to thank you for that. And I want to thank you for, obviously giving me time today and for letting me pick your brain. But honestly, thank you for being such a force for good and for motivation and inspiration and all of those things out there, because we need more of it, and more of that positive, messaging is just critical. And so keep the energy flowing and keep it going. So I've got a gift for you.
It was my pleasure coming here, Ben. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Because you really are inspiring by example.
I hope so.
And your life, it gets to translate a little bit in the the physical component of it, but I think the mental component of it is just as much, if not, as we talked about, more important. How powerful the brains are and the placebo. And so I also want to thank you for your vulnerability. Thanks, and man. The authenticity and like being willing to share some of your story and let people know that we're all in it together and we all struggle with our the same stuff, but
we're all people.
We can harness the power of it and turn it into something great. So anyway, all that to say, just thank you so much, Phill.
Of course, my man. It's my pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.